Hello, this will be a quick PowerPoint about how to read critically or how to read academic sources well. A lot of times students use the same reading strategy for every type of source that they encounter, and that isn't always the best thing to do. Different types of sources require different types of reading strategies. So the first thing that you need to do when you're reading an academic source, like for research, or some kind of critical analysis that you're going to incorporate into a paper that you're writing, you're going to do a multi-step process. And the first step would be to access your prior knowledge. Critical reading teaches you to think about what you know about the topic and how it fits into your prior knowledge. But what if you don't know anything about the topic? You probably do know something. Brains categorize information very like in folders. That's how brains process information. So it's good to help your brain by consciously deciding what does this do and what does it and how does it fit in to what I already know. If you know absolutely nothing about the topic, then you might do a little bit of Wikipedia or Google. Wikipedia tends to break things down and make them very easy to understand. So Wikipedia is a great way to get a quick and what I call the quick and dirty version of it, so that you have enough prior knowledge that you can do a good job reading it. Easy Research lets you get a good general idea about the topic, who the players are, and what the big ideas are. And Easy Research isn't a good source for academic paper, but it's a good way to become more familiar with your topic. And it will give you that prior knowledge that you need in order to read a more academic source well and to understand it. The purpose of academic reading is clearly identify for yourself what you're doing with the reading. Why are you reading this piece? Are you reading it to have fun? Are you reading to master the topic? To learn the important arguments? To find a quote for your paper? To analyze what the reader is saying? To evaluate the quality of the piece? Why are you doing the reading? Having a clear purpose in reading will help you to focus and be more successful in your reading, and it will also help you, especially if the source that you're reading is a little difficult, or you might characterize it as boring. So you go in with a purpose, and it makes you feel successful because you fulfill your purpose. One of the things that we all kind of have to do when we're doing scholarly reading is there's an initial sense of frustration or difficulty. You should know ahead of time that you're going to have a challenge when you read scholarly reading, especially in the beginning when your brain hasn't fully become familiar with the rhythms and the ways that scholars write, or when you're encountering a lot of complicated vocabulary. That can be a very painful process. And you will find that if you read with purpose, this starts to ease as you become more satisfied about accomplishing your task. It will also help if you realize that the more that you do this, the easier it gets. So I remember when I first started college and I would encounter these scholarly works, I would be so frustrated and almost angry that they couldn't write in a way that was easily accessible for me. Over time, I came to understand why they write the way they do, and I came to appreciate the value of good scholarly sources. So it will get easier over time. The reality of all subjects is that the more you know and are invested in that topic, the more interesting even the scholarly writing will become to you. So initially, it's going to be difficult. But if you learn to love the subject and it becomes a topic of passion, like it's your major, you will become more capable of reading that scholarly work and not feeling quite as frustrated. A good thing to start with is to identify the structure of the piece that you're looking at. All scholarly writing within a particular discourse community will have a structure that's predictable and expected by that community. And each one has a special way of putting together their papers. You know, in science papers, there's a very strict structure. Even in literary analysis, which tends to be a little more loosey-goosey in their structure, there's definitely moves that all the authors make that are expected by the community. So becoming familiar with recognizing that structure will help you be a more capable reader of scholarly work, so that when you go to look at the piece, you know where to look. for the information that you want. You will be able to navigate the piece more quickly, and you will be able to find the information that you need more quickly if you carefully examine the structure and start to understand how papers in that particular field are put together. Critical reading, what is that? Well, it's the skills and habits that are not essential when you're reading just for information. It requires alert, active response. So when you read for information, like a textbook, you can read fairly quickly and just catalog the facts. Critical reading isn't that kind of reading. In a nutshell, it's analyzing and evaluating the text that you're reading. So understanding it very well, and then even passing judgment on it. That's part of that process. Critical reading must be done in stages, and you can't expect to read a text quickly once and expect to have a critical understanding of it. It's just really not possible. You have to be willing to do a little extra work to get the reward. So your first encounter with a text that you need to read critically should be a fast overview. You should read the headings, subheadings, the topic sentences, introductions, and conclusions, and you should think about the following things. How does this text fit as a response to the part of the conversation that I've been reading? What is the main idea of the author? Who was the author's target audience? And what prompted the author to write this piece? Those kind of questions that help you establish the context for the piece and help you understand it better. Your second encounter should be reading and analyzing the text. A critical reading is different from a target audience. You are going to go beyond merely finding out what they're saying, and you are going to evaluate what they're saying. So you should read closely and to understand all of the details. You should use paraphrasing to be certain that you can understand what you read. So you should step back and look at the big picture and see how the argument fits into the conversation. I would suggest when you get to the end of each page, or even each paragraph, depending on how hard the piece is, just one sentence in your mind. What did that say? Can you summarize it? And then when you get to the end, can you write a T123 outline based on what you've read? Could you summarize the main points and the reasons and the evidence they provide for that point? That's what the second reading should involve. Now, in this second reading, I wouldn't say read too slow. When you read really slow, you literally create mental gaps in between each word in your mind. They are microscopic, but those gaps are an opportunity for your mind to go on a vacation to someplace more pleasant. So reading slower isn't always necessarily the strategy. It's better to read more quickly and reread several times than to read slower, because then you don't allow your brain the opportunity to create those mental gaps and go on vacation. Your final encounter with your piece is where you do a critical analysis or a response. In this time, you read to understand to respond to what you've read beyond understanding. You might write in the margin, arguing with or praising the author in certain points. You would note places in the margin where the author agrees or disagrees with other writers. You would have a sense of how that piece fits into a larger argument context, and you would be able to evaluate whether you agree or disagree with that author.